to the cloud. So we're going to cover what we consider as a hybrid cloud. Why hybrid cloud now? It's the word that everybody's talking about. Why? The reason why. So we're also going to cover a little bit of what do you think that needs to happen on the hybrid cloud for more organizations to be able to adopt hybrid cloud. And we're going to go through the implementation considerations, what you need to look for in the different components that you're going to have on your hybrid cloud strategy. And we finish with some use case. So let's start with what we define as a hybrid cloud. So as I said, most of our clients comes to us and say, hey, I have my own data center, I have my on-prem well-established. How can I extend this to the cloud? So what are the kinds of applications that I can move to the cloud? What are the kinds of applications that I need to leave on-prem? So as you see, we have different scenarios that can happen. One is the organization start playing with the cloud and create a local cloud. And after that, and they decide, oh, let's create a dedicated cloud that we are going to expand my on-premise to dedicated. And there's some organizations that they start with on-prem, but they want to expose some of the information on-prem on the public cloud. Okay, so there's different kinds of scenarios depending what you are trying to accomplish. This graph, we put it together just to represent the integrated digital enterprise. It needs to be hybrid because what we are trying to do is we have different personas on top and they have different needs. And what is going to happen if you have a well-established hybrid cloud, each persona is going to be able to choose the place where they are going to generate new insights. So basically, but this is a kind of final picture, but it's basically there is different levels of hybrid cloud implementation that you can have. So why hybrid cloud? So basically, it provides, as I said, provided the different personas to choose where is the best place for them to work on and to generate new insights. So basically, it has this localization wise. So you can choose, depends on the workload, depends on the kind of data. For example, I'm trying to generate, putting a new front-end application out there. So I'm going to really try to develop these on the public cloud because I'm going to deploy over there. I'm trying to generate insights that depends on a lot of on-prem information. So it's better for me to really generate insights these on-prem. So it really depends in the use case. The other thing is, what you need to consider with a hybrid cloud is what we call data gravity. It's very difficult for you to move data between on-prem to the cloud. So if you work with cloud providers, just to give an example, and you have over 5 terabytes of data that you need to move to the cloud, the current option available for this, what they are going to say, here is a disk appliance, you copy your data in, and we're going to move your data to the cloud. So basically, you need to start thinking about that. So if you're going to really go to a hybrid cloud strategy, you need to start thinking about data gravity. You need to process the data where it is instead of trying to move the data around. The other thing is, hybrid cloud provides a better, especially here in the Europe region in terms of data sovereignty. And basically, what happening is, if you want to, you are not allowed to move the data from different countries. You're going to be able to have different data centers on each region for you to be able to, and the hybrid cloud allows you to do that. And basically also, it allows you for workload portability and cost optimization too. So based on that, is what we see is the hybrid cloud is the path forward. So what you're going to have is, you're going to have your dedicated cloud and your on-prem, what we call IT. And we are going to have public cloud. Putting together, you get the best of everything, okay? So you're going to basically lower your total cost of ownership, enhance operational efficiency. Basically, you're going to have more areas for you to do innovation, especially on the public cloud side. And basically, you're going to be able to meet your customer expectation more frequently. So the other thing that hybrid cloud provides us, it's a term that most of people are aware, we call multi-speed IT. So the business side usually wants to have access to all the data, and they want to be able to generate their own insights. And it's a different speed in terms of how IT wants to put everything, the process in place for people to be able to use the data. So this is what we call multi-speed IT. So there's the business side always looking, I want to have more data available, I want to generate my own insights, and the IT guys are saying, hey, no, we need to put all the process and controls in place, okay? So the hybrid cloud, because you have different environments over there, you can set up these environments for the business to have access to the data and be able to generate these insights while IT is still controlling everything is underneath. So, and one of the primary scenarios that usually customers comes and talk with us is this. I really want to provide a better customer experience for my clients. And the hybrid cloud, it's a perfect example for that, okay? So what you are trying to do is, I have a lot of information on-prem that I know about my clients, and now comes this new data from social media, from interactions, and so I want to combine this all this together for me to be able to provide a better customer experience. How can I do that? And basically, hybrid cloud, it's a very good example that you can divide this on a transaction architecture and a customer-facing architecture, and then you integrate both together to provide a better customer experience. So what we see as the four primary drivers for a hybrid cloud. The first one is the thing that I just said, integration. So we have on-prem or your private environment over there. It can include a dedicated cloud. And you have public cloud. How can I integrate this together? How can I expose some information from my on-prem environment for my mobile app to be able to consume? So I'm going to create an API, expose an endpoint, and my application is going to be able to consume. How I'm going to do that? The other thing that drives people to the hybrid cloud is really they want to do workload optimization. So it means that how can I extend my on-premise to the cloud, for example, to a private cloud, and reduce my total cost of ownership on my data center. So how can I do that? The other thing is portability. Where it makes most sense for me to run this new application that I want to develop? Do I need to continue deploying these on-prem? Can I put on the cloud? Is the cost of ownership is going to be better? And the final one is really compliance. So with all these acquisitions, companies, organizations buying other organizations, and with the regulations, laws, so they cannot move data around, and the cloud provides ability for them to have different data centers with different regions to be able to do that. So this slide comes from a research done inside of IBM. And basically, it was a surprise for me. So I decided to put on this presentation just for you guys to be aware. And so what it's saying is that by 2019, banking is going to invest 16% of these 620 billions on the cloud market, on the cloud, basically deploying things on the cloud. And I think it's really associated with the fintech, so what is happening on the financial service industry. But I was surprised to see the banking, because of the kind of information that the bank has, all the PCI information, to see them that they want to go to this route to the cloud. So let's look at about the North Star. So what it needs to happen on the hybrid cloud. What we see is that for hybrid cloud to be expanded to more organizations, the 3 points that needs to happen. So, and it's already happening right now. So we want to expose the on-prem or your private environment to the cloud. Organizations want to migrate some of the things that they are running on-prem to the cloud, considering cost efficiency. And we also want to integrate workloads. So new data is being generated on the public cloud. You have your existing data on-prem. How will you integrate this together? And at the end, what we are trying to do is provide kind of seamless experience for any persona that is going to work on this environment to be able to access the data and generate insights from data that's coming from everywhere. So what we're going to cover, these are the different basically components that you need to consider when you are going to a hybrid cloud strategy. I'm going to give an overview of what we think that needs to happen in the future, but I'm going to cover these again when we are considering implementation on hybrid cloud. So data analytics, what needs to happen over there? So what the clients are expecting is I love to code, but what the clients are expecting, mostly from the business side, can I have more a plug and play for me to be able to generate insights and not to have to do all this code, okay? So can we have tools out there that I can really generate new insights using all the data that is available instead of having to do all the different kinds of code. Data preparation and integration. These tools now needs to consider to avoid data movement to be able to process the data where the data resides on the hybrid cloud. So instead of trying to bring the data and to be able to process, all the tools need to take in consideration where the data is and needs to be processed over there. Data movement and data latency, data movement about bandwidth and latency. So what happening is we already have dedicated connections that you can have between on-prem and a dedicated cloud or a private cloud. But the problem that we have is the example that I gave you. So I have a lot of data out there. I need to move to the cloud. The only option for over 5 terabytes is a disk appliance. So what we need to do that, we need to still really working a lot on this. And one of the things that we can do today to minimize this impact is instead of for you to consider bulk loads, moving large amounts of the data to the cloud in one step, start streaming the data. So let's have a continuous flows moving the data from your on-prem to the cloud, because it's going to be better than trying to move a bulk load. And workload and data governance and security. So people that already work on-prem knows that data governance is very hard. So imagine that now you have multiple environments that you need to control. You need to define everything and how it's everywhere. So there's a lot of work to be done on data governance and security, because now we are expanding the data. The data is going to be everywhere, and you need to have controls in place for you to be able to do that. Workload and portability. So a lot of people already start using containers, and I think this is the way to go. Basically, for you to be able to deploy your new application and data where it makes most sense inside of the hybrid cloud. And data compliance, and sovereignty, what needs to happen is we are going to need to have more cloud providers around the globe, and also we are going to need to have these cloud providers to be compliant with the regulations, because there's a lot of cloud providers out there that are still not compliant with the regulations that we have. So let's talk about implementations, considerations. So two things that need to start when you need to think about when you start thinking how I'm going to do this hybrid cloud strategy. One is culture shift, because what happening is it's not about the technology, because we have the technology in place for you to be able to set up a hybrid cloud environment, but people need to start thinking differently. So what I'm talking about culture shift is that now people are going to have an environment that they can prototype, they can do other things that they are not using to do on an on-prem environment. So basically they need to start thinking differently in terms of how a hybrid cloud exists, okay? And the other thing is the different levels of sophistication. So I can start a strategy just, as I said, exposing my on-prem data to my basically mobile app on the cloud, or I can have a full-blown architecture for integration of on-prem with a dedicated cloud and a public cloud. So really, you need to start thinking about how you're going to do that. Our suggestion is usually start with examples, small examples, try first, and after that, after you see the results, you start thinking the overall full architecture. These are some scenarios over there. There are very simple scenarios for you to start going on the direction of a hybrid cloud. And the one that it's highlighted is the most frequent one that user comes to us and asks. Basically is, I have my system of engagement, my channels, my mobile app, or I need to integrate with my on-prem, so how I can do that. But this is just to give an overview, the different scenarios that we have in terms of hybrid cloud. So let's talk about big data and analytics. We already talked about data gravity, and it's the same thing. So we need to process the data where the data resides, instead of trying to move the data around. Localization-wise, so where is the best place for me to run this workload? So you need to start thinking about that. So because now your data is spread out, and so it makes sense for me to run on this dedicated cloud, or it makes sense for me to run on-prem. And if you are doing integration between a dedicated cloud and on-prem, maybe you're going to start looking, okay, what is the highest volume of data that I need to process? It's on-prem or on the cloud. So basically, you need to start considering that where it makes most sense for you to process that information. Data topology. So usually, when we sit down and start talking with the clients on a hybrid cloud strategy, we usually go through this exercise. It's what we call data topology. Let's define the data zones that you need to have on a hybrid cloud environment and what kinds of workloads that you need to have. And so we're going to present an example for that. So when you do that, you really start understanding how things need to be set up on your hybrid cloud environment. So this is interesting. I put this slide just to show you, okay, we really don't know how the traditional organizations going to adopt the hybrid cloud. So we don't have really a percentage over there. So how much data that is going to be on cloud, how much data is going to be on-prem. My guess is going to really depend on each organization. But if you talk with internet-born organizations, they are doing this. They are using an 8-20 rule. So 80% of the data, their data, it's already on the cloud, and they have 20% on-prem. Okay, so this means that they have these three different categories of inside of. So basically, the first one is the data that they want to share publicly is going to be on the public cloud. The data that they want to share across the enterprise is going to be on the dedicated cloud, and the data that is very sensitive that they keep on-prem. So this is what is happening right now on the internet-born companies. But the question mark is what is going to happen with the traditional organizations, where they're going to land into. So the next slide is just to show you, when you think about analytical like Cypher, hybrid clouds promotes that, because now you're going to have access to the data that is on the hybrid cloud on the different environments, and the different personas is going to be able to do their job using their environment, and they are going to have more agility to do that. So now I'm going to do a step back, okay? And I'm going to, this is a kind of reference architecture for a data lake, okay? So we have different components over there. So, and let's start thinking, okay, this is a traditional data lake, and we want to basically fit this traditional data lake on a hybrid cloud environment. So how can we do that? So we do a step back, look at this. I have these different components that I want to put on a hybrid cloud, and we go one level deeper. So let's see all the capabilities that we need to have on a data lake environment before we start thinking about how this is going to be deployed on a hybrid cloud. And after that, what we usually do is what I've already talked before, the data topology. Okay, so now it's one exercise that we already have done with some of our clients. So it means that I have my data source here, I have my landing zone, and so it's color-coded, so where my landing zone is going to reside. And I have my provision zone where the business users and development is going to have an area for them to provision their own data and start prototyping and basically to be more agile. So I have a self-service and collaboration zone, an advanced analytics zone. And on the bottom, I have my traditional IT out there. So I have my data house and my data marts, and we have my production flow running on the bottom. And in the middle, what I have is the shared operational information. So I have my information catalog, I have my master data, I have everything that needs to be shared across the different zones. Okay? So when we do this exercise, now we can see that the data lake encompasses everything out there. And we go to the next step, that is creating kind of a reference architecture for big data analysts, big data and analytics. Okay, so let's go to this architecture, reference architecture slide. So the left side is the public cloud, the middle is the dedicated cloud, and over there is the on-prem enterprise. Okay. So we have the new data source. So we have weather data, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, new information being generated on the public cloud that we need to bring it in to be able to consume and, for example, provide a better customer experience for our users. On the other hand, we still have our transactional data from the on-prem that we have sales records, we have customer information, we have everything out there on the other side. So we can bring this data into the dedicated cloud from the public cloud. As I mentioned before, the better way for you to do this is streaming the data instead of trying to basically create a bulk load and bring it in. That's step 3. Step 4 is I'm using the traditional ETL tools to read from the enterprise systems, also basically using the data that is coming from the public cloud, integrate them together, and putting on the data repositories, step 5. After that, the business, the development team, you start basically prototyping with this data to generate new insights. And step number 6. So the new insights, basically the new analytics, it's being deployed, and it's step number 7. And so now we can generate new applications that can be on the dedicated cloud, can be on enterprise, or can be on the public cloud that are going to use these new insights. And at the end, we have the cloud user or the enterprise user to be able to consume that information that it was generated. So let's talk about data movement. So it's very hard to move data between environments over there. So when you're considering data movement, these 5 things is going to help you a lot. First one is location, location, location. So what this means, if you're going to basically have a dedicated cloud or a public cloud, choose the one that is closer to your data center, okay? Because the distance matters. So it's better for you to start looking for the cloud providers that are close to your data center, because you're going to have a better throughput. Second one is, everybody knows about this, but let's reinforce. Let's have a dedicated connection over there. The third one I've already talked is, instead of trying to do bulk loads, let's stream the data, okay? Traffic optimization, it's when compression comes in place. So let's have compression when you're moving data from one side to another. And workload optimization is for the development team. So they need to be aware now that you have a hybrid cloud environment. Not everything is on-prem anymore, and they need to develop new applications to avoid data movement. So it means that they need to start thinking differently. It's not that you are on your own data set anymore, and you can do everything locally. Everything is spread out. You need to start thinking about your application, how you're going to do that. So data preparation and integration. So there are 3 steps out there. First one is, it's usually what organization usually asks is, okay, how can I expose my on-prem data to my SaaS applications that are running on my dedicated cloud or public cloud? So you're going to use, create an API, expose this to be able to consume. So it's the first step. The second step is really thinking about generating the analytics while the data is still in movement, or locally where the data is being generated. So it means that if you have, for example, sensors that are on your public cloud that are generating a lot of data, why not run the analytics over there, get the insights, and just transfer the analytics instead of trying to transfer all the data? Okay? And the final one is really start thinking about the data lake that I just presented before, saying, hey, I'm going to create a logical data lake on my hybrid cloud for me to be able to have different repositories that has a purpose for me to be able to use this and run my workload in different places where it makes sense. So the next one is security. So a lot of organizations are still afraid to go to the cloud because of this. Okay, so it's the number one concern in terms of organizations moving to the cloud. So the first thing that you need to consider is what I can call mind the gap. And why? Because you're not going to have the same security level that you have on-prem on a cloud provider. So you need to understand what are the difference between your security level on-prem and your security level on the cloud, and realize what are the process that you need to have on the cloud side to compensate for this. Okay? So this is the first one, mind the gap. So see the difference, what you need to do, because you're going to need to create extra process over there. The other thing is deal with the data. So it means that where do I need to have encryption, where I need to have data masking. So what kind of, and this needs to be proactive. Because a lot of organizations, what they are doing, they move the data to the cloud, and after that they start thinking, oh, how am I going to encrypt this, how am I going to mask this? So what this means is you need to start thinking when you're going to do a hybrid cloud strategy, okay, I need to move this data here, what kind of protections, security levels that I need to have for my data that I'm going to move to the cloud. And the last one is get compliant. So start checking with your cloud providers what are the compliance levels that they have, if they are PCI compliance, if they are HIPAA compliance. So what kind of compliance that you need for your data, and see if your cloud providers can provide or not. And the last one for this session is this, performance. So we need to start thinking about, yeah, we're going for this cloud strategy, but what we don't want to compromise in performance. So we need to start thinking about performance too. So one thing that we need to consider is the network latency between on-premise and the cloud. So we have an application running, and so where is the best place for me to run to avoid long latency? Okay, so we need to consider that when we are going to the cloud. So what kind of service that I need to have to access my on-prem information? So let's consider that as a part of the exercise too. I put VPN over here because a lot of people say, hey, the best option is to create a dedicated connection. I have my virtual private network connecting my on-prem with my cloud. Everything is fine. So when you start looking at the performance, you're going to see that there is a 30% overhead just for um, encryption costs. So if you are moving large volumes of data to a VPN and you are encrypting to be able to have the data being transmitted to your VPN encrypted, you're going to have an overhead of 30%. The other thing is the security gateway. So the security gateway is crucial because when you go to one environment to another, you have a security gateway. And usually organizations start with this and put one security gateway to control the traffic over there. And so what you can start thinking is, why not putting more than one security gateway to avoid the bottleneck? So it's something that you also need to consider. So now we are going to go to some examples. And we're going to use the same architecture that we presented before. I helped implement this on a very large financial institution. So what they tried to do first, but the end result was completely different. But what they were trying to do first, they want to have the system of record data exposed for the channels to be able to consume. So we start with that, but at the end, what they want to do is, the results that came out of this project was, they not only want to expose the data to the channels, but they want to provide what we call next best offer. Okay, so it means that they want to use the data that they have from the clients and come up with what is the next best offer to provide on the channels. So how we did that? The bottom line is we're bringing so we start with the channels. And so what we did initially was creating some APIs to expose the data from the on-prem systems, and we are using the API management for that. And it needs to go to have a security gateway. So we had to install a security gateway clients on the enterprise side, and we have another one on the dedicated cloud. Okay, and after that, when they decide to go to the route and, I want to also generate the next best offer, what they did is, let's bring the information from the transaction systems. Let's really run statistical models that can generate in the next best offer, and let's create a repository on the inside of the cloud for the channels to be able to consume. So this is how this use case was implemented. The next one is very similar. And so basically, the purpose was the same. So they also want to provide next best offer to the client. But instead of having only the transaction data that's coming from the enterprise, they also have the new data, like social media data, Twitter data, coming from the public cloud, and they want to combine these together to generate the next best offer. So it means that they were using basically Spark streaming. It's number 2 over there, but they were using Spark streaming to be able to bring the data from the public source. They are using the traditional ETL to bring the data from the enterprise. Basically, they are combining the data, and they were creating basically the new insights through the discovery and exploration and deploying on the actionable insights over there. So after they deploy on the actionable insights, these insights can be consumed by the SaaS applications that are being generated on the enterprise sides and also on the dedicated cloud side. And the users from both sides could consume that information. And the final one, the final example. it's all about cognitive, okay? So basically, we want to have a better user experience on the device, okay? So kind of, I want to provide kind of a personal assistant for my applications when I'm basically interacting with my customer here. So we start with the data on the enterprise side. So it's basically it's unstructured and semi-structured data, okay? And what we did is we also have the public cloud data, so we also bring the public cloud data. The ground truth is how we train the cognitive APIs. So it means that you have a lot of questions and answers over there that you're going to train for your system to be knowledgeable when it's interacting with the clients, is going to be able to provide the correct answer. So the ground truth is for that. So basically, so we had the ground truth, we do the training, we train the APIs, okay? And after that, the rank and retrieve, it's basically, when you provide a question, the rank and retrieve, it's a Solr basically search that is go over there and finds the correct answer over there. And so what it was happening is the user is going to talk on the device, oh, my question is this, the speech to text converts this to text, go over there, go to the knowledge base, find the right answer for that particular question, and reply back to the user on the device, okay? So, and if you want to look at more examples like these ones, we have a site that has all the different solutions, all the different architectures, things that were being already implemented with the clients, and you can go over there and check it out, okay? And with that, that's then. Do we have any questions?
Also, that report that Marcio mentioned in the first place, that was generated by IBM Business Value Organization. So they did a survey with many C-suite executives in different companies, in different industries, in different geos. So that report is also downloadable. Downloadable. So you can also just do a search. IBM Business Value (IBV) is a report about hybrid cloud, how different industry. This is our forecasting, right? Based on our survey among different C-suite leaders. So that's also, downloadable.
Go ahead.
Did you have any case instead of using two clouds just for balance, or for avoiding, for example, that if there is an attack, a DDoS attack, one cloud pulls down the other one for recovery, and or even for reroute the traffic?
Yeah, we did an implementation for a bank in Australia with this approach. So it means that we create two dedicated clouds, okay, that the bank was using, and was really for workload balance and also failover. So it means that we could move the traffic for one side or another, depends on what we're not really thinking about being attacked, but because we're thinking more about workload balance and be able to fail over if something goes bad in one data center, cloud data center, we still have the other one. Yeah, the disaster recovery.
There are two different data centers in two different cities.
Yes.
And then another example that Marcio mentioned, the second one, the customer personalized whatever that is.
Customer behavior insights.
Behavior inside. That one actually is a heterogeneous heterocloud. hybrid cloud, because they actually not just use the IBM cloud, they also use Microsoft cloud for different purposes, right? So really they wanted to optimize the performance and then of course, reduce their cost. So they really pick and choose different cloud providers to fulfill their purpose, their business, to solve their business problem.
Because
so that is a heterogeneous hybrid cloud.
yeah.
So you don't have to stay with one cloud provider. Of course, we like to all, all stay with us, but all I'm saying is that the beauty of hybrid cloud really allows you to take advantage of different cloud providers, leverage whatever that you think it's on your priority list, whether it's a performance, whether it's a cost, because the art of doing the hybrid cloud is really a balance play, because you have multiple business goals, whether it's grow your business, or reduce your IT cost, or you want to enhance the performance, you want to be compliant to certain regulations, and especially in Europe, the GDPR, GPDR. So that's the thing that whatever it's on your priority list, right? The top three, and then you kind of design your hybrid cloud based on those three, right? And you can, again, like I said, most of the enterprise, we have our on-prem, traditional on-prem system, right? And then how do you extend and expand your on-prem capability and taking advantage of the cloud provides, right, to achieve your business goals. Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you.